What we do a little differently is our Reno branch, for instance. We've got a lot more bank, a lot more building than we need. And so we've used about a third of our building as community space. If you're a business that's relocating, we've had them come in and say, hey, I heard of the space. Is it okay if I use it? I'm not a customer. It's like, absolutely. Here you go. They'll sit there and they'll conduct interviews with potential employees that they're trying to hire as their business is relocating to the area.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Andy Ryback, President and CEO at Plumas Bank. Andy, how are you today?
I'm great. It's a beautiful time of year. My gosh.
Excellent. Well, hey, I appreciate you spending some time with us on Business Ninjas. Please tell us a bit about yourself and about Plumas Bank.
Sure. So I came to Plumas Bank 23 years ago, and it was, best decision of my life. Came in on the accounting side. They didn't have a controller, and I came in as their controller. And within a couple of years, I moved into their CFO role. And then 2 years after that, with the Great Recession, the board decided to make a management change, and I moved into the CEO role. And that was 14 years ago. So that's kind of how I kind of landed where I'm at now. Plumas Bank started 44 years ago this December, and it's headquartered. The bank is headquartered in a small little mountain town, Quincy, California, which is a lovely spot, but not a big thriving metropolis for sure. It's a town of about 5,000 people, and the bank has spread over the years into numerous counties and even states now. So we have 15 branch locations all over northeastern California and a couple in northwestern Nevada. We also have a loan production office up in Southern Oregon and a workforce that spans the nation. So we have workers, I think, in 6-7 states across the nation. So when somebody is, especially with the pandemic, when somebody has left, we don't let them leave. If we can retain that talent, we can have them work from their house or wherever they relocate to and stay with us. So that's worked out very well for us.
Excellent. And what sort of banking institution? Is this mostly private? Is it commercial? Who are your clients?
Well, where we started in Quincy and a lot of the little rural communities around us, we're kind of the Main Street bank. We're the bank for everyone. All the, kids come in and open a savings account and eventually kind of grow, with the bank. So we got a lot of retail. We have a lot of small business. But as we've grown in the last decade and a half, we've really grown into a lot of more larger, more dynamic communities. Communities like, for us, more dynamic for sure. Still somewhat rural. Communities like Redding, Yuba City, Reno, Carson City. We just opened a branch a year and a half ago in Chico in the northern part of Central Valley. And in those markets, while we still have retail clientele, our focus is primarily on small to mid-sized businesses in those communities, just by virtue of trying to target a certain audience. About half our deposits are retail, and about half are small to mid-sized businesses.
I guess dynamic is a relative term when you live in an 8,000 person town. I grew up about an hour north of Manhattan in a town of a similar size, so I understand what isn't dynamic in a town of that size. What are the typical problems you're solving for your clients, other than the obvious banking issues?
Our clients are very busy with their businesses, and they don't really have time to be worrying about our processes and so we're there to make life simpler for them. We're two-pronged. I mean, we very personable. I mean, you walk in, they'll stand up, greet you, know your name, know who you are, and already be ready to take care of whatever needs you have. But extremely powerful too. We have a lot of technology that we employ to make our customers' lives just simpler, so that if they want to be banking at midnight, they can do that. If they want to be banking on vacation, they can do that wherever they're at. they're carrying the bank with them, and we're there for them. We don't use automated trees, you call us and we're going to pick up the phone. And if you have a problem, we're going to resolve it and we're going to take care of it. So for those clients that want a more personable, but yet, powerful bank behind them, we're the perfect fit for them.
Excellent. I was about to ask you, what differentiates you from your competition? What makes people want to bank with you versus one of, but the big boys, the Chase, the Citibank, et cetera. What differentiates Plumas Bank?
Not only do I serve as the president, CEO of Plumas Bank, but I also serve as the chair of the California Community Banking Network. So representing all the community banks in California. And I also serve as the lone California state delegate for the ICBA, the Independent Community Bankers of America. So I represent the state of California for all community banks there too. So I go to Washington, D.C. Once a year and kind of lobby on behalf of community banks to try to educate the lawmakers how community banks are different. And they're different than megabanks. We're all banking and trying to resolve and take care of clients' needs and solutions, but there's a pretty big difference between a community bank and like a megabank. And in fact, I got something somewhere. Hold on for a second. So picture, a little Hot Wheel. I don't know if you have kids or, but the Hot Wheel is like 1/64th of a size of a vehicle, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they're made. And so if you represent the assets of the community bank and equate them to about a Hot Wheel size, picture there's 4,000 of these community banks. Some might be RVs, some might be little sports cars, trucks, whatever, little different sizes. But, roughly, consider a community bank in the $1 billion range, somewhere plus minus, going up to maybe 10 billion at most. The mega banks, there'd be the equivalent of the mega banks. So the fifth largest bank would be 10 full-size vehicles in total assets compared to a Hot Wheel. So, and the largest of the banks would be 40 full-size vehicles. Yeah, so it's staggering, the size of the assets. You can just imagine the size of those organizations. And, I don't know that if you walked in, they're going to know you. They might. Your banker might know you, but at a community bank, they're going to know you. And whether you're a big, important business customer or, maybe a small startup business or a retail customer coming in, they're going to know you and they're going to greet you and they're going to treat you well. There's a difference between a community bank and a big bank. And we saw it, especially during the pandemic, when businesses were in dire need of those lifelines, the PPP loans. And, our bankers were staying up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning working on getting that distributed to our customers. And community banks they kind of kicked the can of the bigger banks. The bigger banks just couldn't set up the systems. They're just too big, too many clients. They couldn't handle it. Community banks, we not only handled our customers, we handled a lot of other customers that other banks couldn't handle. And were rewarded with their business, following the pandemic.
Hey,
able to take care of them.
People like to feel appreciated. It's important, especially when we're talking about our, personal assets and our wealth and things like that.
It's your money.
Yeah.
You should be taken care of. You shouldn't have to come in and expect like, hey, listen, this is who I am. And could you look me up and help me out? And it's your money. We should be taking care of you.
Well, your last comment led into my next question, which was, tell me about the challenges and opportunities of growing a bank through the pandemic. It was a challenging time.
Yes and no, I guess. It was a challenging time. I think it reminded me, the Great Recession for me was a challenging time, just coming into the CEO role. And there was so much change and upheaval. We had to make structural changes that were very difficult to make, and having difficult conversations with our regulatory agencies. And it was dynamic. It was a dynamic environment. And, as we kind of got into the late teens, I remember thinking, gosh, this just isn't as exciting as it used to be. Things were just kind of marching along. We were doing great. The bank's performance kept getting better and better every year, but it just wasn't that exciting, I guess. And, guess what? You better be careful what you wish for.
Everyone, yeah.
We hit the pandemic, and yeah, that changed a lot. But it didn't. It didn't. Where Quincy's at, it's again this small rural mountain town of 5,000 people, and our whole region wasn't as impacted by the pandemic. It just wasn't. I came to the office. We never missed a day. And my staff didn't miss days. There was a couple of employees who had, maybe they, systems that they had to be concerned about their own health or their family's health. We had some of those people work from home, but not many. So it didn't really change that much. And then the only difference was, when I go to the grocery store, I'd put on a mask. Other than that, that's about the only time I wore a mask. It shouldn't change life. And then I think people in the whole Western states kind of realized, especially people from the city, say San Francisco, were trapped and couldn't do anything. And so they flocked to our regions. We had more home sales in our region than we've ever had. People who had second homes occupied their second homes through that whole time frame. And so people wanted to be here. You could get outside and go for a hike, go for a bike ride and not be yelled at or told that you can't be breathing outside. So it really flocked people to our region. And as a result, not only did we distribute PPP to our clients because they had no idea what was coming and how disruptive their businesses were going to be, but their businesses ended up having the best years they ever had. So deposits grew rapidly kind of during that time frame. So not only did we have people kind of stockpile their PPP loans in preparation for what could be coming, it ended up not being bad, and they ended up having a great year because people just came and spent money wanting to be here. And so that, we saw a lot of growth during the pandemic, a lot of balance sheet growth, which, was ideal. And it was an exciting time again, having to kind of manage through that process and, try to make sure our customers were taken care of. A lot of our clients, we had a lot of technology. A lot of our clients knew that we had it, but never really used it because they loved coming in and seeing our bankers face to face. But, during the pandemics, there was a lot more embrace of our technology and, electronic banking. And so, we had that. Not only that, we had some drive-through windows and they became extremely popular. People wanted to, instead of walking in the branch, drive up to the window and get their banking done if they needed a personal touch. So there was a lot of changes. And then, as I mentioned earlier, as we've had employees leave and move into different states and parts of the nation, we've been able to retain that talent because we have a comfort of meeting just like we're meeting now.
Cautionary tale is be careful how loudly you say that you're bored in banking because you never know what's coming at that point. Well, hey, I'm glad it was a fruitful time for you. We're in an era where you have to tell your story because we are meeting remotely and people do their research online. What role has content played in the growth of Plumas Bank? How are you telling your story?
It's real important to kind of share, especially as we enter into those newer, more dynamic markets. We have our cheerleaders in those markets because we have people who have kind of moved off the mountain. They got tired of having some snow in the winter. And so they're in the valleys, either the north part of the Central Valley where we have several branches now, or in the Reno markets, the Northern Nevada markets, Reno or Carson City. So they come and they are so excited when we have a branch that opens up. But, the market itself doesn't really know us and doesn't, you're a bank, okay? There's a lot of banks. So how are you different? And so we have to differentiate ourselves and we have to tell our stories of how we are different. For instance, in the Northern Nevada market, it's a lot of big banks that kind of dominate that market. And I don't, trying to explain that difference, that Hot Wheel story is, I don't use that necessarily with clientele, but I use it when I talk to legislators and such. But what we do a little differently is our Reno branch, for instance. We've got a lot more building than we need. And so we've used about a third of our building as community space. So you don't have to be a client to use it. You could, if you're a business that's relocating, we've had them come in and say, hey, here's the space. Is it okay if I use it? I'm not a customer. It's like, absolutely. Here you go. And it's got Wi-Fi capabilities and there's a coffee maker and a whiteboard. And so they'll sit there and they'll conduct interviews with potential employees that they're trying to hire as their business is relocating to the area. And of course, then they're kind of intrigued, like, wait a minute, why are you letting me do this? Tell me more about your bank. This is kind of interesting. And not only that, but we've got a community garden space off the bank. So if you want to take a stroll through the garden, great. We also had a mural done. We like to embrace the arts in our communities. And so we had a mural done by a great painter, Eric Burke, and it's a corner section of the branch. It's a big white wall. And so it's just a beautiful piece of artwork. And he was thrilled to do it because he'd never done a corner. And so it kind of almost has a 3D kind of look to it as you drive by. And so people, notice that. We showcase artists in our branch. When we opened up our Chico branch, we partnered with MONCA, the Museum of Northern California, and they showcase artists. We trade out the artwork. We just traded, I think, a week or two ago with Tim Moore and showcasing his art. We have a mural there as well. So it's just kind of people drive by and go, bank with a mural? Wait a minute, what is this? And then as they walk in, they see different artwork on a regular basis. And so, we value that. We value those relationships we have with the artists, and I think they value it and being part of the community. And we're very passionate about our communities and trying to support them. So again, we try to differentiate ourselves however we can and show that we're not here just to bank. We're really here to take care of the community, and we're hopeful that that's the goals of our clients. We want them to also be very focused on, hiring and growing, expanding, and taking care of the community as best we can, whatever way we can.
It sounds like you're practicing a lost art that I remember from my childhood of what banking was like in the 70s. Everybody knew each other. There was a personal conversation long before, okay, so what are you here to do today? It wasn't the almighty dollar first. It was about human beings doing what they had to do to help lift each other up, and banking was part of the conversation. So I appreciate the approach.
It's kind of funny because, it's like we're not really doing anything different. We're just doing what banking should be doing, and banking has gotten away from. And it kind of, people get really surprised when they, wait a minute, I've never had this before. It's like, well, it's really how banking used to be. It should be.
Agreed. All right. Look down the road a year from now. What are some things you'd like to be celebrating personally and professionally?
Gosh, well, I don't know, it'd be celebrating, but it'll be a change. Personally, my oldest son moved to Louisville, and he's in the medical field. And my youngest son, who works part-time here at the bank and still lives at home, he's graduated from college, but he was a pandemic college kid. So yeah, kind of finished up online and didn't really get a chance to spread his wings. He's going to be moving back to Louisville. So he's leaving the bank at the end of the year here. And we'll be going actually into the medical field as well, going into a radiology program. So we're going to be empty nesters. We were empty nesters for about a semester.
Oh, boy.
And so we had a taste of what that feels like. And, the pandemic brought both our sons back. And that was the best thing, I thought. After a semester, it was great to have them come back and the whole gang be back together. But it's good for him to go out and spread his wings. And it'll be, I think it'll be exciting for him to be living with his brother and entering on a new phase in life. And so, that'll be exciting and go back and visit, I'm sure. We'll look forward to doing that.
And on the perspective,
the bank.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and on the professional side?
Yeah. Gosh, the bank is a very strong performer. We really perform better than our peers. For 7 years in a row, we've been named one of the best performing banks in the nation. So we get this award called the Raymond James Banker Cup, which looks at the financial metrics of the banks between 1 and 10 billion in size. And of those, they award this cup to the top 10%. We've consistently got that cup in 7 years. But 6 of those 7 years, we've been not only received the cup, but we've been named as one of the top 5 in the nation. So consistently performing at a very high level. And so it's, it's a marathon, not sprint. Keeping that marathon going, takes patience and trying to figure out how to, what's the next best way to achieve higher success than what other banks are achieving. So keeping that track record going is important to us. I think, of course, that's just one of awards. We got probably about a dozen different other kind of awards that people recognize the bank for. So.
Well, those are metrics that speak to people appreciating being treated like human beings instead of numbers on a spreadsheet. So again, I applaud the approach. It's obviously working, and I know I would prefer it to what I'm currently experiencing as a a bankee. All right. What is your URL? Please tell our listeners where they can find Plumas Bank and what social media channels you're using these days as well.
Sure. So our website is plumasbank.com. And, Plumas kind of throws people. You can go to the website and you'll see just information all about the bank and our corporate citizenship, something we haven't talked about that, we're very proud of how we take care of our employees, how we take care of, corporate governance and our communities. So yeah, plumasbank.com. And, just so people are hearing Plumas Bank, they sometimes struggle with the name. I've heard people say Plumas. They just don't, it's hard. It doesn't roll off the tongue maybe, but it's a Spanish word and it's feather. And so, there was a Spanish explorer a couple hundred years ago coming up the Central Valley and deciding, as he's following the Sacramento River, decided, gosh, there's this big tributary that's feeding the Sacramento River. What is this? And he saw some feathers floating down the river. And so he called it El Rio de las Plumas. So the river of feathers. That river starts right kind of where Quincy is and our surrounding mountain towns. And that's a big bird migratory route. So a lot of birds nest there. And that's kind of where the feathers were coming from in the river. And so Plumas stuck, and it's Plumas County, Plumas Bank, and there's other businesses using the name Plumas as well. So.
Excellent. And what social media outlets does Plumas Bank use?
I might have to call a lifeline, but I know we're on Facebook. I know we're on LinkedIn. I don't know if we're on X. I honestly, all the different social medias, but we do have a social media individual who focuses on that. So I'm sure our messaging is getting out into multiple platforms. It's kind of hard to just be on one or two nowadays. And I'm not sure if we're on Instagram and X or not, but I know we're on Facebook and LinkedIn for sure.
Gotcha. Andy Ryback of Plumas Bank, thank you for spending some time with us today on Business Ninjas. All the best to you and yours, and continued success at Plumas Bank.
Thank you, Andrew.
My pleasure. Be well.